poetry curator in the Greater Cork region. That's Sarah Byrne, who started a wonderful new magazine called The Well Review. The issue 2 is coming out soon with a special limited edition chapbook by world famous Canadian poet Anne Carson. And Sarah is instrumental in making sure Ishion Hutchinson is with us tonight. So please welcome Sarah.
Thanks so much, Pat, and for putting on such an amazing programme again this year. So I'm just going to introduce, Ailbhe Ní Ghearbhuigh and then Ishion. So Ailbhe was born in Kerry, and she's published 2 previous collections with Coiscéim. Her poem Vona Groarke was chosen as the presidency poem in 2013. And the breadth of poets that have translated her 2016 book, The Coast Road, serves as a testament to how respected and how necessary her work is. And Ishion was born in Port Antonio in Jamaica, and he visits us tonight from Italy. He's completing a residency there with the Joseph Brodsky Rome Prize, and he's also an assistant professor at Cornell. With their work, Ishion's work, I think it sort of assures and disorients you at the same time. So I find it's sort of stable and sort of, it's sort of, when you feel like you're stable, then you're sort of moving again. And he's a poem March, which is now I am tuned, and moments later he says, anyway, don't get too hung up on terms. The images, I suppose, that I found that coincide in their work, Ailbhe has a beautiful poem, Shalvu, that was translated by Billy Ramsell, and she writes of a yard boasting a cloak of feathers. And feathers appear in Ishion's hurricane poem, The Logic of Feathers, and it seems like a great image for both of their work. I won't go on too much longer, just about, I suppose they both consider power in their work, in The Coast Road and The House of Lords and Comets, and it's all done through language. Ailbhe has a poem, The Love Bind, and there's this compound Balpianga, which means that it was rendered as dumb tongue in David Wheatley's translation. And Ishion's poem Pierre, I asked him was it okay to compare him to Paul Muldoon, but it's very like anseo. It's set in a classroom and around sort of obedience, and I suppose they're both concerned with the other and how other languages reflect through their work and stuff. So I'm not going to speak in any Irish, I'm just going to give the floor to the 2 guys, and thank you for your attention.
Good, Sarah. And thanks to you all as well for coming out tonight. What a great night out there. We'll have a lovely festival of poetry, I think. This is about a man who goes to Antarctica and he falls in love with the landscape and the way the landscape speaks to him. And it's translated by Billy Ramsell. File on Antarctic. Clushan sé fósaí, díos gán an aird, Thuramá le Bhadmhuigh, Cúnas an tneachta. Is cuin leis go fóid an tair úr a chlugad, an lás carróg a ged lanta, fuacht meithe ag danú a chnis. Thug sé grá a chrí don muid gheall, don dísead postach, don tírbheach sochart. Ach bégan do file an taiseacht is an maile, bhí cúil a thuairt de máine. Is ihe a íre na bhean go cuin, an chiiste na bhágant is don leithí a lí. Is even leis uignas an taláin ón scunna, is ceol aige sranán an rótóra, nótaí daine á sinint go maul, glúscáil ach lónach, a lauren le gach baul, bang bio. Return from Antarctica. He can still hear it, the glaciers rasping, their ratcheting in the distance, the snow quiet. And still he remembers gulping unsullied freshness to clarify his lungs, the holy coldness blessing his skin. He gave his heart to that stinging brightness, that taciturn redoubt, that uncluttered country. But no choice except to return to dampness and home. He had to turn his back on blankness. On so many nights, his wife asked him tentatively to abandon the kitchen and join her upstairs. He loves the irregular loneliness of each tap drip, and its music to him, the refrigerator's drone, basso profundo, slow in the recital, grinding sighs that call out to his being's every element. I spent a number of years mildly obsessed with how we can hear languages in different things and different forms of expression. So kind of landscapes speak to us. And I spent a lot of time looking at languages that aren't not reliant on speech. So this is about a shrieking language in the Basque country used to express emotion. And it's translated by Billy Ramsell. I'll read the English first. Urencina. If we could out with it like you, fine Basques, letting every outburst out loud, releasing wrath, laments, hosannas, gladnesses, in an ecstatic, yelped, serrated flow, oh, we'd be frog-voiced and full of love. Oh, da menister voor nosna, a vascacha, ag squile le gach racht gehor, ag ligant le gach gull, gach gui, gach gordus, isro, geir, glorver, gordhach, vemisht surk, is grogach. And the language of love. This is a poem translated by Gillis about lounging in bed with your lover in the morning. Grasse matinée. Oranges we will soon taste. We will drink hot black coffee, but there is no need for haste. For there is such great waste in hurrying. Oranges we will soon taste. We are interlaced, we are beyond mere play, but there's no need for haste. Slowly kiss my face, savor me, my love. Oranges we will soon taste. Stay your hand on my breast, there is fire in the eye, but there is no need for haste. Stay calm, stay firm, I love you fit to burst. Oranges we will soon taste, but there is no need for haste. Isamid Arashti Erbawi, Old Mead Cafe Tech Boo, Achni Leandau. Oris Moor and Fowl, Vech Egrastu, Isamid Arashti Erbawi. Drid liam an awl, ni ga an gliasú, ach níl ein daw. Póg na véal go mawl, blastíam a rún, Isamid aráistí bawl. Quibble the loiv dem chawl, há dúil sa túil, ach níl ein daw. Fan suckers, fan town, má bhrág ar dainhu, Isamid aráistí bawl, ach níl ein daw. This Next poem is set in West Kerry, in Ailbhe Ní Ghearbhuigh in Ghearbhuigh, where there's lots of interesting things. There's an Owen stone, there's a sundial, and there's the ruins of an old church. A very narrow window, Crawl Snohated, the eye of the needle, and if you can fit through that window, you've got your ticket to heaven. This is translated by Michael Cody, who was supposed to be at this festival, but I understand is unwell, so we wish him all the best. Eye of the Needle. We married one sunny day in Ailbhe Ní Ghearbhuigh, when our childish fingers kissed one another through a slit in an Owen stone, standing there, stately. What then of the backroom prophecies of gossips, and the 6 offspring we were promised? Did they drift away for want of us? Too little our heed to the sundial shadowing our days and all their counting, and you being crushed by mysterious shades. Did you slip through the eye of the needle, or was it into the deep maw of ocean that you were cast off forever? Crónas Nóhada. Fósamar lágréine I Gillis Ní Ghearbhuigh, nuair a fóg ar méireanta leanabí a chéile trí chluch ón fáilte a cheas ann go mhairge. Agus an seisir cinenne I bhí gealta de taling nach trúil an tómara, ar a níadar le sruth dar nurasa. Bheag bean a bhí mar ar an blog gréine, a bhí ag áireamh ar leitheanta pusa á osca ag scáhanna diabhra. An gúis trí Crónas Nóhada, nó an san aigéin farsing doracha a telgachu chun na siaríochta. Ten years ago, I was living in New York, and I was teaching Irish up in Bronx and in Queen's College. And for that year, I lived in Harlem. And this is a poem about my experiences there. I'm going to read the Irish first, and it was translated by Meadbh McGuckian, who you can hear at the festival tomorrow night. Nithe Celte. Dúiltíonn sé bíorla a leabhtheann agus strís fear an tupa ó Veracá Lord, fear an deli grocery store. Cairlíonn sé a ráthúil rána ag fada in a ragara, tháinig sa sipa á túil in Iarthar Harlem. Ní bhacam na stair cholínach ar díortha a phlé, mar go ceapann sé gur wasp as Connecticut né. Déanamh ar an in our go Yiddish. Laura mas Berlin, Sheshin as Spanish. Táim buíoch nachtagan chud slína dóireachta, is nachtagan Sheshin má Vasily Gordatacha. Missing the point. There is no way he will speak to me in English, with his grin on him, the grocer from Central America in charge of the deli store. He makes his 2 bold eyes very thin, alert for any reaction. We are in the local shop in West Harlem. It's a waste of time to discuss with him our shared colonial past, since he has assumed I'm a wasp from Connecticut. We conduct our affairs in our mutual nonsense. I talking Irish, himself Spanish. I'm lucky I don't get his sleek innuendos, nor him the mockery of my offensive jokes. Thinking again about migration and emigration and language, and how difficult it is to maintain the language from generation to generation. And there was a lot of Dominicans in the area I was living in, and you could hear a lot of Spanish, but I did wonder, thinking again about so many Irish speakers who would have gone over, unless you have the support of a large community, it's very easy to let those languages just decay. And sometimes the mother tongue can be a source of embarrassment as well. So this poem is called Emigrante, and it's translated by Paul Muldoon, and I'm going to read the Irish first. An chiad orde sa dawn oer, hí found ite an ille ní a anam nu. Nu an rud a bhra lena méir. Creanach, cuirt luch na ground, muggle canó capel a raibh an taibh stigde cho bog vín agus muoi le hí féin. Nu gur háig go máthir a ceann amach fan ó gnáirde is de bheith, "Hey, chica, qué frío, eh? ¿Dónde está tu chaqueta?" Ní raibh uí inis agus slugfaí sa fuiteachí go bara a cín, san iithir sin na féicfaí as an gréis sin na áiscfaí. Ní bhrisig an luchas sin na súile go brach. Emigrant. Her very first fall in the new world, her main aim was to call everything by name, to mark things with her finger, the moss, the wet tree bark, the gloss of a horse chestnut, the innermost part of which had grown as tender moist as her own, till her mom dared to stick her head out of an upstairs window and shout, "Hi, girl, surely you're cold enough. Did you leave home without your muff?" Now her greatest desire was to vanish off the face of the earth, sinking into the mire and leaving not a trace. She would put forth a bud from that patch of earth, out of that same mud undergo a total rebirth. Nothing she carried, gene-wise, would ever break through her eyes. Shade an Dawn Deganach. I'm going to finish with a new poem, and it's called Crow, and it's translated by Billy Ramsell. So Muldoon, thanks to Péacadh and all of the Munster Literature Centre, and I hope we all have a wonderful festival. We measure her measuring, will she come in? Will her carriage pass through the door frame? We've registered this kind of thing before, uncertainty at the threshold. But no need for her, between two words, to hesitate. She'd be swallowed anyway into this kingdom of heat. There's a scatter of us here already, salmon-eyed and sweating. The coffee in our coffee pots, sweet and ineffectual. A few of us monitor the clock on the wall, but most wouldn't give you spilt milk for the hour, stationed here between drowsiness and roaring. The hunger suckling at us, brain in brain, the matter sipped out of each bone. Oh, how this cursed acoustic titillates and stabs, the whispering and the shrieks and the jibber-jabber. And still she cogitates athwart the door frame that the only way out for her is to come in. Cianí de Tost an Raishi Stach, maid na trucala trí ráma an doris. Chonaic mar na héad rimisha, ginteach der an dorsach. Ach ní gáide the idir gá chóirle, slug for irénom sa stacha richt seo an tasa, tá scata gwyn an solhanna. Súile éisgorin is sin a chur alish, tá an cafe sa fota lag agus bog, is tá draw meag Farrar go géir an blog. Fervór gwyn beag bean an uair, just ag marachtant ó nail go búr, an tuchris ag dú an le fada, le stóir, an smur suirte as gach cnáv. Gló damanta na háta sa ag réabh, cogarní is gabarach de scréacha. Tá sí fós an dórsach ag farí isteach. Ach ní léon dó siúrcha, ná éon tachbas. Gur míle maigad.
Good evening. Thank you, Ailbhe, and thank you, Sarah, for... Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, when I'm reading, I'll shout. But I wanted to give thanks to Sarah for making it possible for me being here, and to Patrick for kindly accepting her invite. The garden. The streetlights shed pearls that night. Stray dogs ran but did not bark at the strange shadows. The minister of all could not sleep. Mosquitoes swarmed around his net, his portrait and his picture and drinking glass. The flags stiffened on the embassy building but did not fall when the machine guns flared and reminded that stars were inside the decrepit towns, in shanty zinc holes, staring at the fixed constellation. Another asthmatic whirl of pistons passed. The chandelier fell, the carpet sparkled, flames burst into the lantana bushes, the stone horse whinnied by the bank's marble entrance. Large cranes with searchlights lit the poncianas, a quiet flamboyance struck with the fever of children's laughter. Then all at once, the cabbage palms and the bullhoof trees shut their fans. The harbor grew empty and heavy. The sea was sick and exhausted. The royal palms did not salute when the jeeps roamed up the driveway and circled the fountain. The blue maho did not bow, and the lignum vitae shed purple bugles, but did not surrender. The homeless did not run, but the dead flew in a silver stream that night. Their silk hair thundered, and their heels crushed the bissy nut and ceramic roofs. The night had the scent of cut grass sprayed with poison. The night smelled of bullets. The moon did not hide. The prisoners prayed in their bunkers. The baby drank milk while its mother slept, and by the window, its father could not part the curtains. A burned ship. Tiger moth, hair smoke, silk tide, her mouth's not the chamber angel, the night chimera that comes to the boy on the alabaster throne, no longer child king of Sumer. His trigger blood hammers rust, strings of charm, shards of jewels, glint like sunset oil, street shield held closely in the singing woods of bat-eaten fruits, silently hanging, blocked seeds, cut sage and rosemary, a blight mercury, cured meat, silver streams dividing on the sea the ultraviolet weeds, plankton, seahorse, half-man, sunken masks, god's horn, perfume, ivory tusks, market dust, vine pillars, Bataram sound, orange light caravan, wheels of water spinning industry, whipped backs, shock foil, the galvanized wax, congealed dreams of a burned ship. All were lost, all were drowned. Bicycle eclogue. That red bicycle left in an alley near the Ponte Vecchio, I claim. I claim its elongated shadow, ship crested on stacked crates. I claim the Saramouth Arno and the stone arch bending sunlight on vanished medieval fairs. But mostly, I claim this two-wheel chariot vetching on the wall, its sickle fenders reaping dust and pollen off the heat-congested city coiled to a halt in traffic. And I, without enough for the great museums, am struck by the red on the weathered brick, new tires on cobble, The bronze tulip bell, smaller than Venus's nose, turned up against the river, completely itself for itself. The scar in my palm throbs, recalling a tiny stone once stuck there after I fell off the district's iron mule, welded by the local artisan, barrel mouth, no relation of Botticelli, the summer of my first long pants. The doctor's scissors probing my flesh didn't hurt, nor the lifeline bust open when the stone was plucked out. What I wailed for that afternoon was the anger in mother's face when she found out I had disobeyed her simple wish to remain indoors until she returned from kneeling in the harvested cane, tearing out the charred roots from the earth after cane cutters had slashed the burned field. It was her first day and her last, bowing so low to pull enough for my school fee. For, again, the promised money didn't fall from my father's cold heaven in England. As we walked to the clinic on a rabble of hog plums, her mouth trembled in her suit frock, my palm reddened in her grip, plum scent taking us through the lane. By the time we saw the hospital's rusty gate, her fist was stained to my fingers curled, and when I unfastened my eyes from the ground to her face, gazing ahead, terribly calm, in the hail of sunlight, a yellow shawl around her head, something of shame became clear. And if I had more sense, as my blood darkened to sorrel at the age of 12 or 13, I would have forgotten the sting and rided tight to my hold after letting her go. And now, as I raise my camera, bells charge the pigeon sky braced by the dome, a shell fallen from the sun. I kneel, snap the cycle, rise, hurry away. It was a boy named Pierre Powell who was in charge of the atlas in the cabinet. He also ended days by shaking the iron bell from Principal Williams' window, a work we grudged him for very little. What cut our cores twice a week, and we had to endure, was him being summoned to fetch the key, again from Williams's office, to open the varnished box with the world map, old and laminated, a forbidden missionary gift trophied beside the Oxford set of mathematical instruments and other things seen only by Pierre and Teacher Rose, who now only nodded to raise him to his duty. We waited in quiet his return, Miss Rose, all crinkled blouse and bones, with chalkless in her hair, did not stir until he was back, panting at the door. Another diviner's nod, and he opened it, unrolled the map expertly, kneaded out creases and held down edges for the rule our eyes followed, screeching out countries, and etched in the periphery a khaki-pillared pear with a merchant smile, a fixed blur in our cry of Algeria, Switzerland, Chile, soon withered away, and we eyed the field of dry grass outside, a rusty mule statue frozen in the punishable heat, Pierre, a phantom sea, fraying over Antarctica, Fiji, Belize, India, of those still in the route, a liturgy of dunce bats whose one cardinal point, Tropicana, a sugar estate, so close we could smell the sugar being processed, whistled its shift change and terminated geography. As if punched from dream, those of us gazers, spared the map rolling up and cabinet locking ceremony, saw him with a cord-strung key, an earnest air bearing him away in the portal of sunlight. He was absent the week before summer, and when Miss Rose, in rare fashion, inquired, a girl said he had gone back home. Home? Miss Rose sounded the strange word. Home, the girl echoed and added, him from Cayman, miss, or Canada, somewhere with a C. We turned to Miss Rose to clarify Canada, or Cayman, this elsewhere sea curdled to snow in our minds, foreign always spectral. But she pointed anonymously a crooked finger and said, run to the principal for the key. The whole class scattered, paid no heed that not a single one was ordained. I think I hear that Bob Marley is known here. This is true. Equally known, Lee Scratch Perry? Okay. So, of course, Lee Scratch was one of Marley's early producer, and the Marley sound that you're familiar with, Scratch is responsible partly for bringing it out of Bob. So for a while, Bob Marley lived in Lee Scratch Perry's studio in Kingston, and was sort of tutored in the many things, in a kind of artistry that is grounded in the odd, in the permanent child, in the elusive. Scratch was interested in that, the echoes that histories, particularly the colonial experience, and particularly the journey across the sea, which is undocumented. So we can imagine the sounds of people in the hovels of ships, but what it is to create a music that articulates that sound. And so that's how you get reggae, and that's how you get dub in particular, which is Scratch's invention. So he had this very famous studio in Kingston that he built, and he called it the Black Ark. An ark because of the whole mosaic thing. No, right? No. Yeah, one of them. But a lot of the music that was produced there often come under the name archaeology, punning on the word, but it's really to create an archive, right? So an archive of the Black Atlantic. But Scratch isn't that earnest. He's not going to, sound like me saying such stupid, He articulated it as a phenomenon that is grounded in mystery. So how he got to build the studio, a mystery. How he eventually destroyed the studio, itself a mystery. He burnt it down. That's, conflagration by fire. This poem is in his voice, and it's trying to get as close as possible to that sense of the mysterious. The Ark by Scratch. The genie says, build a studio. I build a studio from ash. I make it out of peril and slum things. I alone, when blood and bullet and all Christ fucking American dollar politicians start the pressure down to nothing. When the equator is confused and coke bubbles and tinfoil to cemented reef. I built it. A conga drum so hollowed through the future pyramids up long before CDs spin away roots men knocking down by the seaside like captives wheeling by the Kebba River. The genie says, build a studio, but don't take any phone in it, just electric. So I make it. My echo chamber with shop rooms of rainbow King Arthurs would keep in, and one for the Maccabees alone, for covenant is bond between man and worm. Next room is Stone Age. After that, iron, and one I named Freeze, for too much ice downtown in the brains of all them crossing Duke Street, holy like Parsons. And in the circuit breaker, the red switch is for death, and the black switch is for death, and the master switch is black and red. So if US, Russia, China, Israel talk, missiles talk, I talk that switch I call Melchizedek. I build a closet for the waterfalls, one for the rivers, another for oceans, next for secrets. The genius says, build a studio. I built it without gopher wood. Now, consider the nest of bees in the cranium of the gum. Consider the nest of wasps in the heart of the bush doctor. Consider the nest of locusts in the heart of the black heart man. I put them there, and the others that vibrate at the feast of the Passover, when the collie weed is passed over the roast fish and cornbread. I upset her. I Django on the black wax, the super ape, E.T. I cleared the wave. Again, consider the burning bush in the ears of Kalanji, and the burning sword in the mouth of the fireman, and the burning pillar in the eyes of the gargamel. I put them there to outlast Earth as I navigate on one of Saturn's rings. I mitre solid shadows setting fire to snow in my ark. I credit not the genie, but the coral rock. I am stone. I am perfect. Myself is a vanishing conch shell speeding round a discotheque. At the Embassy of Angels, skeletons ramble to check out my creation dub. And sex is dub, stripped to the bone. And dub is the heart breaking the torso to spring olive beaked to be eaten up by sunlight. Thank you.
Coming up to the stage for questions, guys. Is that okay? Thanks, Amelia. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll start the ball rolling, Roger. I heard Nick Laird say once that he was sort of, had felt he like, is this recorded? Resolved, sort of dealing with. Oh yeah, okay. I was back. I'm just reading. And he sort of resolved his, not his concerns, but his preoccupation with the Troubles and his Northern Irish identity, in terms of he felt like he wanted to go in a different direction. Is there anything that you kind of have shelved away in terms of subject matter that you feel are, that were kind of friends but you'd like them to leave now? Or is it like, how do you move on to new subject matter for things like as big as those kind of subjects?
Yeah, sure. My second book, Tost, agus, Allagar, was all about the different modes of communication and unusual languages, like a whistling language. And some of you have been hearing about these poems for years, so you're probably sick to death of them. And in a sense, I'm also sick to death of them. When you spend a long time working on a singular project and you're kind of mining a certain scene, and then the book comes out, and and there's always something very unsatisfactory, I think, when the book comes out, because there's so much to feel, you could say. But for my own sake, I'm going to leave those unusual languages to the side. But I still see them, and people still send me kind of newspaper cuttings about them. So, but I'm going to leave them to one side for the time being, and try and just go wherever else the imagination can take me.
For me, I think I generally don't approach the writing from the subject matter. I'm hoping always that rhythm is determining what might come out, but really though, I really have only a handful of subject matter, and they are usually either celebrating or cursing out a particular place where I'm from, for being either too beautiful or too cruel. So I think in a way poets generally function in those contraries. And but the bigger issue is one of which is where to detect the lyric pulse within a narrative momentum. That's something I've always tried to write into, and trying to do that with as much variety as is possible.
Is there a roving mic? No, there isn't. Does anyone have...
No, but there's good acoustics here.
Okay. Does anyone have a remaining question or... No?
Aishin, what's it like to be published in Britain and America by two of the greatest publishers going? Is this something that you're astonished by, or is it something you think that comes naturally anyway?
Well, it's so normal. No, and it is an incredible, fortunate position to be in, but largely, not to underplay anything, but it's a lot of luck, because the ingenuity of people that I know who are in very similar position as I am, who work as hard and just haven't found that grace of luck as yet. So I'm very fortunate in that regard, and I owe it to myself, but to the very, amazing mentors that I've had for many years, who, in a sense, schooled me in a secret lab and gave me all the tools, and so now I'm trying to make the best I can with that.
I think your idiom is recognizably very individual, and also I think it's authentically Caribbean, your voice. But you don't write in dialect. Do other people criticize you like they criticized Derek Walcott for not writing in dialect?
What I love, a response that Walcott had to that was, people never criticize me in dialect for not writing. I wonder what it's like here. Are you critics in Irish? They write yes?
Yeah, I suppose it's a tricky one in that I feel like a lot of Irish people have a very complicated relationship with the language, and so sometimes they want to take it out on as someone who just happens to write in the language. That happens at times.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm always writing in I wouldn't call it dialect, in Jamaican, because that is the first rhythm, and it affects all of what comes through in the poems. It's there. Actually, it is the thing that, as you say, I would argue, gives me an individual sound. It's the sound of the place where I am from, and that's not easy, because the fallacy is that, okay, it's natural, so all you have to do is write it down. But the thing that is difficult and rewarding when it works is to let the sense of sound haunt the language that it has to be carried in, right? This is a colonial tongue. It's the language of a troubled and dire history, but it's the only one that I can really use, and so on. But we know that the language of poetry is never just restricted or limited to the language of conversation and communication. It has a more a purpose that is greater than just what it looks like when it's written out. So, and I mean, that would be, for me, returning home and looking at the place itself. That's its language. And that has a greater than myself meaning, which I'm hoping to responsibly filter through my own self. If that makes sense. You guys are nodding like no.
Sort of expanding on that if you're writing in Irish, do you commit to, I don't know your work very well, it's great, but...
It's okay. You can
I can talk from here as well, it's fine, yeah.
Do you commit to writing in any particular, in Irish or English? Like before you write a poem, or is there a way you just, I'm writing in Irish this week, or something?
I don't write in English at all. I don't write any poetry in English. I don't find it, for me, a very creative medium.
Okay. But do you, that's one part of it. Then do you think that there's anything about English then, it could have been Irish, whatever, but that's shaping how you're thinking you're writing in Irish at all? Is there any sense of the structure or the rhythm? And I also, Ishion, I would also ask that of you in terms of how you might think the rhythms of, the native, whatever that native language is to use.
So in my case, I suppose Irish is my native language, and it would be much easier for me to write in English. I'd have a much bigger audience, but I can't. It doesn't happen for me creatively. And of course, I am influenced by what I read in English, in any language, things I see. That's just how we filter the world, So I suppose everything happening around will find its way out in Irish in my case.
I'm just saying, do you think that there's a kind of the conversation you were talking about? Yeah. Is it how conscious or unconscious? Do you think it's conscious at all, or are you just letting it play? Just sort of saying, this is what I have. Like you're saying, this is what I got. Because we end up with these conversations, and I'm not sure how they work out. I've really tried to write in other languages too. So.
I don't know. I don't think you just let it play, because the poet is someone who is stubborn to a fault, and will not let up until she thinks she has it, right? And the poet Elizabeth Bishop says to write, poetry is unnatural, right? And she wasn't kidding. It's look at you're compressing, contorting, and making shapes sonically out of, given the language, whatever sonic property a particular language has. You have to multiply that by as many stars there are. So, that's impossible for a human person. But then again, like Ailbhe said, we have great examples, the poets that we turn to. But it's simpler too in regards to, I think, this idea that why we're so fascinated with children, because there's a way in which things come spontaneously, right? Within that time period of limited language, they have such expressive variety which we have lost as grown folks. So in the way that I think a poet is often returning to that not innocence, but a childlike state, which is just pure music.
Have we time for one more, Pat? Or
I think we've got time for that.
just
Margaret, thanks so much, both. Really fantastic night. And it's a question feels somewhat related to this judgment. But I'm curious. I'm recently kind of returned to our native language after a spell away, and I'm very struck by the extraordinary beauty of the delivery of the language and sound. I'm very special for me tonight to hear you deliver it in our language and your language. And it's a basic question, probably one you've been asked a few times before, I can't remember. How do you let go of that to someone else who translates your work? Or how do you marry your ownership of those things? If that makes sense. I'm extraordinary because we're translating your work.
Oh, I know, sure, look, so fortunate. Like,
she married her best translator.
I think if the poem doesn't get translated, it won't get heard. It's absolute necessity. So I'm not that sentimental about it, to be honest. And I think, you think of Ailbhe Ní Ghearbhuigh, who has been translated by many different people, occasionally the same poems multiple times by different people. You just have to let it go and appreciate the gift that you get in return, which is this other thing, And I've had so much fun reading these translations from the Post Road, because there's 13 different translators, there's 13 different voices, and I like that variety. I think it's fun.
that's great. Thank you so much. You can buy the guy's book outside and ask them more questions between you.